It is with profound honor and heartfelt warmth that I welcome you all to another relevant session of the National Educator Summit 2025 titled Fostering Institutional Branding and Visibility Reflecting Indian Ethos. This theme gains significance in today's context, where global rankings, digital presence, and stakeholder trust increasingly hinge on how authentically an institution communicates its cultural ethos and national identity. In an era where educational institutions compete not just for excellence but for relevance, embedding Indian ethos into branding strategies creates a distinct narrative that resonates both locally and globally. It is both a privilege and a matter of great reverence to present to you our distinguished speaker for this session, Professor Mohan Kuruvilla. A stalwart in both industry and academia, Professor Kuruvilla's professional odyssey spans an extraordinary 43 years. His journey commenced at Tata Tinplate, where his leadership flourished over 18 years, culminating in his tenure as Chief of Marketing. Embodying the spirit of innovation, he transitioned into entrepreneurial ventures, collaborating with AkzoNobel and 4 other global giants, spearheading market development across SAARC nations. For the past 15 years, he's been associated with a premier American multinational orchestrating strategic project marketing initiatives. Parallel to his corporate legacy, Professor Kuruvilla has remained an enduring academic force and high-rated faculty, mentoring generations of management scholars in the nuanced realm of business-to-business marketing. Over the last 33 years, he's taught at several IIMs and presently contribute to IIM Bangalore, IIM Trichy, and Kristu Jayanti School of Management, empowering our MBA students for the past 23 years, especially in the field of marketing and sales distribution. As a trainer of high-impact leadership, he's conducted executive learning sessions for top-tier corporations like Samsung, Toshiba, HP, JCB, and KPMG in India and Singapore alike. His intellectual contributions include op-eds on sales and marketing, and a celebrated case study, the Tinplate Company of India Limited Need for Conceptual Focus, which was presented at the Asian Case Writers Conference in Singapore. Sir, it is indeed a rare honor to have you amidst us today. May I now request Professor Dr. Edward Aloysius, Director IQAC, to present a sapling as a symbolic gesture of welcome and gratitude. Thank you, sir. With the stage now set, I invite Professor Kuruvilla to illuminate us with his insights and take over the session.
All these gadgets sound a bit complicated. Good morning to all of you. I'll go slowly, moving away from all the jargons, but do ask me questions as and when you feel you need more clarifications. I prepared these slides keeping in mind the roles I have played in life as a parent, looking for an admission, as a student, learning, and as a teacher, teaching, and as a corporate executive. I've looked at all the roles. When we moved into Bangalore, me and my wife, and our child turned 5, the first question we asked multiple parents in Bangalore was, which is the best school in Bangalore? And all of them said in one voice, it was Sophia's girls' school. But we had a son. But they said Sophia takes students boys students up till the 4th standard. So you have a chance, but it's very difficult to get an admission. The second is either St. Joseph or Bishop Cotton. These were the only 3 schools. All of them had one conclusion: it's very difficult to get an admission in Sophia's. But I was very adamant that we will get an admission in Sapphires. Now, there is only 40 seats. The first major challenge was to get an application form. So the night before the application form was being distributed, I went and I saw a huge queue from the gate onwards where people were standing. I was approximately around the 70th one. The gate was, from the line was up to a hotel called Lee Meridian. Such was the big queue, all of them wanting an admission in Sapphires. I told the person who works in my office that you stand in place of me. I will come and take charge at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, I took charge, and from then on, I found a lot of ladies in front of me as well. So I started exercising, because the moment the gates open, you have to run. Run as fast as you can to get to the window to get the application form. The gates opened, and I ran never like this before, to reach the window. A lot of ladies were upset with me because they were ahead of me, but I have beaten them for the first time running. I reached the window. I got the application form. My wife and I filled it up. Came the next challenge. We both had to face an interview with the principal. And there was a checklist of questions. How much time can you give the child? Why did you choose this particular school? Why not so many other schools? We had not thought of these questions, but we tried our best to answer them. Then came the third. Once we got the admission, there was a progress report about the child, about how he assimilates knowledge, and what we need to do to skill him. 4 years later, when the graduation ceremony began, I was asked to come and give the keynote address at Sophia School. And I said to all the children who were at the podium chosen, that today all of you look different. You know why? These teachers picked up every grain of wheat, processed it in a very uniform condition, and made it into a bread which is as soft as it looks and appears. All of you are uniform in knowledge and skill. Therefore, join hands with me to give a big clap to the teachers who really work hard down teaching and developing a brand. A brand is just a name that you earn. The name has to have a meaning. And therefore, you have to be the first in the mind whenever you talk about a category. Whenever you have a pain or a gain, the first name should be your name. That's what all of us look at in marketing. How do I get into the mind of the customer to be the first one? And unless you touch the soul of the customer, you cannot be the first one. So I will look at both the traditional method and the new form of digitization, which has impacted all of us. And therefore, I open this class with this topic, first in the mind. Now, I will go forward. Brands are just names, but these names have an association or a disassociation. Many times you should say no to something for which you stand up. And that's how your name has to be developed in this short lifespan that all of us have. It is a name, and that name has to have a meaning. The first example of branding was given by Seth Godin, who was actually an entrepreneur. And he writes, a brand is an expression, memories, and stories. Just like the parents telling me the story about Sapphire schools. Seth Godin narrates a beautiful example. And he said, a lot of cows belonging to several owners were actually being left on the green meadows of New Zealand. But in the evening, when they came to collect, there were fights between the owners because all the cows were white in color. So one owner decided to put a belt around their cows to make it different. And that uniqueness is actually what makes a brand. How unique are you and how different are you from all the others? That distinction is what drives you to be chosen by others, that you are the best in that particular topic. So always remember, brands are developed not only through advertising, but through her work. Kellogg's school, the faculty, Craig, says the foundation of every building has to be strong. The longer the building, the taller the building, the foundation has to be strong. And therefore, every school, whether it be management or whether it be non-management, should be based on knowledge, skill, and discipline. To know something choosing that path in which you are going to excel. You cannot be good at everything, but you have to be good at something. And that's why the teachers come into play when they look at the class and says, you're good at this. And therefore, these are the areas that you would actually excel in. And that's what we all contribute to the students' life in shaping their minds. Now, digitization has transformed all this. So I'll quickly go through all these slides. Sophia stood out for all the quiz because I asked all the parents, how is Sophia different from others? And they said, the first 4 years, the teachers are more or less motherly. The same motherly affection they show in the classroom. Even if they scold the students, they don't mind. It's just like a mother scolding them. So there's absolute no distinction between a home and the school. And they look forward to this overall holistic growth of a child. Had he not been given that foundation, he would not have been where he is today. We all have to be understanding that knowledge, skill, and discipline is what we weave through in life. It was the most difficult decision for me to resign from Tata's when I was heading the marketing function. When I was heading the marketing function, my child, we had to be transferred to Calcutta as the marketing's head office. And he fell ill. He doesn't know Hindi. He doesn't know Kannada either. So when he was admitted to St. James, and I came back home as very late at night, he was running high temperature. He opened his eyes and he asked me that one question, which I'll never forget. What is that you want out of life? I don't see you at all. My mother is my father also. How long will this go? I decided to submit my papers. It took me 8 months to be left by Tatas. Everyone said I was making the biggest mistake. Yes, I had to come back to Bangalore, and I got admission in Bishop Cotton Boys School. It was a tough 2-year period where I had no income at all. I had to leave the company's house. I had to give away the car. I had to give away the telephone. And then I understood what life is all about. You can actually develop from nothing. When I go to office, often asked me in open classroom, sir, is it possible to make money with no money? And I said, yes, it is. You should have seen his eyes dilate. And he said, join me. We both will actually win. We can make money from no money. It is as simple as it is. But if you actually acquire bookish knowledge and you do not develop those skill sets, you don't convert them and internalize it and come down to the level of the child, you're not a good teacher. You have to have the passion to transform the life of others, as you have limited life too. So use the time very well. I was telling Professor that in the US, I had an opportunity to take a few classes. They have something called a clinical professor. The one is a research professor who has a PhD. The other is a teaching professor who teaches. And the third one is a clinical professor who integrates both the teaching and the practicing together to actually shape the mind of the corporate executive. Today it is very damaging. And I will show and share with you how difficult it is to engage children who are constantly disrupted by the new technologies. And you can't engage them in any activities whatsoever. So just to share this with you as we go along, the advantages and the disadvantages, engaging the new child is the biggest challenge. Now, before I do this, I want to share this with you. The impact of digitization has made this world borderless. In other words, Kristu Jayanti can now get students from across the globe. The next child sitting in the next Behmer row would be from US or from Africa. It is a borderless world. And there's no question about me now looking at a confined geography. Now, this has advantages and disadvantages both. So new age parents and children have too much of choices. So whenever you have a problem, the first thing you do is you search on the Google. And you get a list of solutions. And the list of solutions, when you get, you review what people write about you. Do they write good about you, or do they write bad about you? Based on the reviews, then you go to the portals of those institutes and then ask a few questions. And an artificial intelligence chatbot takes you through those answers till you have made up your mind and you find that this is exactly the solution I was looking for. And then you actually take that brand as the choice for yourself. This is digitization, the opportunity that you have. But you have to develop a lot of positive reviews. In other words, positive word of mouth. Just like Sophia's school had positive word of mouth in the traditional media, in the digital media, the more positive word of mouth you have around the globe, the more will be the demand for you in the globe, not confined to any more geographies. So the messages are contagious. These messages are not only contagious, people actually can mislead you because these messages get amplified. I will show you some of the messages in the video format, if it works. Today's child is addicted to the mobile phone. I'll show you the latest data that have come out. The Indian child versus the American child. How many hours they spend on the mobile phone. In the classroom, it is very difficult to teach because these children come with mobile phones either hid in their bags or in their pockets, and they're constantly viewing something when the class is going on. You can't actually scold them either or ask them to leave the class. They take it personally. So how do we manage this new age generation which is addicted to these devices? And they get all the solutions, what they want, on the mobile phone. The span of attention has been reduced. So in placement interviews, we teach them what is called an elevator pitch. That means If you're walking along a hall of 100 meters and you're asked a question, what is that you do? What should be the answer? If I cut the hall into 50 meters, same question if I ask you, what are the words that you will eliminate? And then when I ask you to come with me to an elevator and we go to 2 floors and ask you the same question, what are the words you will eliminate? Can you articulate what you want to speak with minimum words? Articulation is so very critical in today's life, because too much of speaking reduces the attention span. That's what is happening to all of us. Short mails, crisp mails, directly addressing the pain or the gain of the customer. That's what is most important. So I'll just quickly share some data with you. This is the latest data that has come out. The average American spends 6 hours on the mobile phone. The average Indian spends around 8 hours on the mobile phones. You see people driving scooters with mobile phone, watching them. Cars. Look at the kind of environment we are in. In some of the IIMs, you're not allowed to come into the class with the mobile phone or the laptop. But what happens inside the class? They sleep off. If there's no mobile phone and there's no laptop, they sleep off. How do you wake them up? And therefore, the best method we have found to teach them now is through storytelling. And there are 4 types of stories we have to weave into to ensure that a concept is well understood. Fun stories, sad stories. Success stories, failure stories. We develop a story tree and say which story will fit in where, because now it is researched and figured out that facts do not impact you more than the stories that you narrate. The more the stories are gripping, the child understands the concept even more better. So believe me, teaching is a noble profession. You need to develop stories, but don't rely on the book to guide you for all this. This is the data on the mobile phone and the usage. Now, this is the next data I want to share with you. You learn, that means knowledge, only to forget. You learn only to forget. Why? Because the data shows that whatever you learn today, within 90 days, more than 90% is lost. Now, how do I make sure that it's retained in your mind? That's another challenge that we have. So, research now by Kellogg's shows that you need to have practice sessions. Now, there are 2 types of practice. One is called repetitive practice, and the other is called deliberate practice. Do not make a person do repetitive practice, but deliberate practice is more important. Now, I'll distinguish these 2. Are you familiar with the name Usain Bolt? The 100-meter Olympic winner. Now, when he won the Olympic gold, when he was preparing for the next race, he looked at the video and he looked at the guy who came second. And then he looked at his own frame and each step that he took, and he said, where could I improve to actually reduce the time limit further to beat him again? Now that's deliberate practice. Repetitive practice leads you to become an expert without thinking. Deliberate practice is goal-oriented. You want to beat the person again and again and again and again. And therefore, critical thinking is very important. So that's the distinction between a repetitive practice and a goal-oriented practice. So we all learn, we all know. We need to apply the skilling part, but we also need to do deliberate practice. That brings in the strongest foundation for a building, or the strongest foundation for a child who to be released into this world. This is the quote I like the most. Research has now shown that, generally speaking, once a person reaches that level of acceptable performance and automaticity, the additional years of practice don't lead to improvement. You must have seen doctors. You must have seen teachers go to the class with no preparation. No preparation with what happened yesterday. Because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. If anything, the doctor or the teacher or the driver who's been at it for 20 years is likely to be a bit worse than the one who's been doing this only for 5. And the reason is that these automated abilities gradually deteriorate in the absence of deliberate efforts to improve. You need to be hungry to improve and improve and improve. So do read up, develop skills to bring to the classroom new things that can actually enable critical thinking and convey through storytelling. And stories make a huge difference in everyone's life, because they go home and tell the same stories to their parents and make them laugh. And there is a whole society of laughter being brought about. That's what is actually this profession contributing to. Mother Teresa's quote: "If I look at the mass, I will never act. If I look at the one, I will." All these are showing us that you should constantly challenge yourself, and do not think that you are good. We are not good at all. We have to be better and become the best. And it is possible in today's disrupted world to be the best in this world, because you know who is the best in the world. I meet up all these faculties who are the so-called best in the world, have written books, and I try meeting them and talking to them. That's how I engage and learn, when talking to them. So now I'll come to the challenges of how to overcome. Now, the traditional method of communication. The first principle of communication is communicate what others want to listen. Do not communicate what you want to say, but communicate what you want to listen. And what do you want to listen? Only 2 things. Only 2 things. Examine all the purchases you have made. You want to hear only 2 things. 1, will you remove my pain? 2, if I have no pain, will you make me gain? So any purchase that you look at, you have purchased basically to alleviate the pain or to improve, you make yourself improvement to gain. So communicate what they want to listen. Do not communicate what you want to say. I report to a boss who's very older to me, and I took him to a senior-most manager, a senior-most policy maker in India, and the first slide he showed was the organization structure of the company. And he looked outside his window. After he left, he called me aside and said, "Why do you bring such people to meet me? Is this what I wanted to hear?" Everyone wants to listen only to 2 things. Will you be able to remove my pain? And a child will not speak up unless and until you come to his level of asking him, how can I help? Watch this movie called Amsterdam Hospital, the New Amsterdam. The CEO asks every time, everybody, how can I help? And his best friend, the cardiologist, he sacked him when a surgery was a failure and the patient died. You need to learn and learn and learn and learn all the time. That's why I don't miss a moment talking to a child. And each time I enter the class, I ask the child, do you have any questions? Keep on asking me questions. Keep on pushing me to the wall, because questions make you much more sharper. It is not what you answer that matters. Through your questions, I get an insight into your pain. Through your questions, I get an insight into what your aspiration levels are. If I cannot do that, why am I in this profession? And therefore, communicate what others want to listen. Second, in this world, communication cannot be verbal alone. You have to use multimedia communication. You have to mix up videos of a child today pulling his hair because he can't solve a mathematical problem. That's the pain. And now you show another child very calm and addressing the problem. The journey from pain to a no pain situation is what is called building awareness. If you want to use the term awareness, awareness can be created only if you create a gap between the pain and the gain and say, I can do it for you. Through storytelling. It is simple. And the child will be like a Pied Piper to you, walking behind you, because you actually transformed him to a completely new level. And that's what we all have to do. Communication principle number one is communicate only what the others want to listen. Number two, communicate using multimedia. A mix of videos, audios, and verbal. All these three should bring excitement into the classroom to ensure that there is gripping attention in the class. And they say, I want to be like him. Can I be like him? Yes, it is possible. Now in the traditional media, there are only 4 methods of communication. And all these are broadcast methods. Advertising, you pay for it. Pay space for it in the television, pay space for it in the newspaper, and communicate what you want to communicate. I am the best, I've got accreditations, I've got number of placements. That's not what the child wants to listen to. Open today's newspaper. I read today's newspaper about the colleges. They're all saying the same thing. I talk to the drivers who drive me. Where is your child studying? This particular college. I said, are you happy about the college? He said, yes, because they've promised my son a job. And then guess what? Most of the calls that I get today are how they have been asked to leave the companies because they cannot deliver the results. So marks is not the matriculation. Marks cannot judge that you're good or bad. And my job is to convert a bad student, which is in your mind bad, to be a confident young man who is ready to take on this world. That's what we are all here for. Advertising is paid for. Sales promotion is giving an incentive. Take a trial, come to the classroom, take a trial demo, attend the class, and see for yourself how we teach differently. Sales promotion. Publicity is third-party advertising. The best example of third-party, I don't know whether you know Barkha. Are you familiar with Barkha? I'm glad that you're still awake. Because it's very difficult to keep awake. Doctors have told me, whenever you fall asleep, just sleep. Because we don't know when the next sleep will come. I tell this to my students as well, because I suffer from this sleep apnea issue, and I suffer from lack of sleeplessness, because I worked in different time zones, and it ruined my life. I don't like a student to do what I have done. I don't want you to suffer because of this. There's better methods, shorter methods to address things, but be simple in life. Don't complicate your life and complicate others' lives. Barkadat, once upon a started the news at 9 o'clock at night. And she bought a child. Now look at the number of media she's using. And she said, this child has got a hole in her heart. Her parents are daily wage earners. This child is not going to live more than 30 days. We need 20 lakh rupees to conduct a surgery. All the listeners, I'm appealing to you, if you could actually contribute. All of us were very touched. We were ready to give. But 15 minutes later, she told the listeners, the Apollo Hospital chairman just now called us and said he is willing to conduct the surgery free. At the end of the news, she said, I have already got 60 lakh rupees. Now that's called impactful communication. A communication which was not paid for. Now that's publicity. Publicity is not paid for communication. But these are all broadcast media, the traditional form, where you want to say what you want to say. But how many times in the Hindu magazine you read at the bottom, this child is sick, wants so much money. Do you contribute? Do you don't? But look at this. It's the same message, how they brought it alive. So use your media, which makes the message come alive actually in front of the eyes and ears of the listener. Then it is what is called attention. You get attention from the listener to say that, okay, this is exactly what I am struggling with, solving the problem. If I get a teacher like this, I will definitely do very well. Look at the pace at which he teaches. Look at his patience in terms of answering the questions. Look at how he complicates the questions further and guides you to solve it. That's what we have to do to shape the mind and disengage them from these devices. The last is personally communicating. All these are what is called broadcast media. Broadcast media has no impact anymore. It is those people who chase customers. I get calls almost every single day from Prestige, from some insurance companies. Are you speaking? Ma'am Mohan Kurvila speaking? Yes, speaking. I'm from Max Life Insurance. I switch off the phone. The next call. I am calling from Prestige Builders. I switch off the phone. I don't want to listen to you. Because it's broadcast media. You want to sell what I don't want to need. I just don't want. And you're selling to me. But look at the counter that is taking place. Can you have customers chasing you? The example of Sophia School, where we were actually waiting outside the gate, wanting to run. We were exercising for the first time to beat all the people ahead just to get an application form. The world will beat and will look for you if you're very original, if you're very creative, and you are actually going to touch their soul. Touching their head was one rational benefit. Touching the left brain, which is emotional, was the other aspect. Now you have to touch the soul, where truth lies. Are you original? Are you honest? Do you have integrity in you? The world will look for you. This is broadcast media. Now let's look at the new forms of communication. The new forms of communication is this. There are three types of media: paid media, owned media, and earned media. I won't take much of your time. I will quickly wind up. If you have any questions, do ask me. I'll stop for a minute or two. If you're closing your eyes, I won't bother you, but you're still awake, you can ask me any questions you want.
Here is a question.
Yes, sir.
So you're talking about branding.
I talked about?
Talking about branding, branding. Now, I have a problem because I am of a brand called the Don Bosco brand, the Don Bosco schools.
Yeah.
But we are constantly now finding out ways and means of sustaining our brand. We were branded, and today many of our, the school principals, they are living up to the past brand, not the present. Presently, many others have overtaken the brand. I don't know, you're talking about Sapphire School, whether today it is still the number one brand in Bangalore. So this is a question that is now, how do we maintain our brand for a long period of time?
Very good question, sir.
Yeah.
Can I answer it towards the end where I talk about the branding part of it? Yeah. And the questions related to that, and how do you really sustain your position from time to time, because you cannot, what you did yesterday is no longer relevant today because others catch up with you. Your question, is Sapphire the number one school now? No. The customers have choices, and plenty of choices. So what should Sapphire have done is the next question. So the principal called me to address the grade 10 children. And I go wherever people call because it's just to get an insight. Not that I get paid for anything, and money doesn't attract me at all anymore. So when I interact with these children, I get to know exactly what needs to be done. I just sit down with the principal and talk about how you have to be different now. Look at what the questions they are asking. That's why from the questions I get insights. But I'll give you 4 questions to answer to develop a brand and keep the brand afresh the customer. I'll give you that. I intentionally kept away from marketing tools. Intentionally on the branding part. But I will give you a simpler version. Yeah. Any other questions? Do ask me a few, even if for the sake of asking. Just ask. Yes. How to master the impact of communication? So the two most way to impact is take a sample of customers and run a questionnaire in terms of their pain points and the gain points. That's what we do. And then look at what your company's strength is. The strength definition is, it is internal, that is, you possess. Second, it's relative, that you have, but the competition doesn't have. And third, by virtue of possessing it, you can transform the pain of that customer. That's called the target. Select that target. And then propose a benefit which others cannot match. That's in simple terms. Now comes the question of communication. How to communicate? And I have multiple slides to show you about communication in India. One of my biggest weakness in life is tea, And I'm very fussy about the tea that I get. No one has made a good tea for me. And invariably I fight with the person who has given me tea. So in China, when I came to the airport, a girl outside a restaurant wished me good evening. And I was stunned because she had energy in her. God created salespeople the last. Salespeople had 3 E's with them. They're energetic, they're enthusiastic, and they're empathetic. They have energy. That's why in a railway train coach, one guy says, chai, 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 no one buys. The other guy with some complete spark hair, very bright looking, fresh clothes, and fresh looking, he says, garam chai, you stop him and you buy tea, right? That's the difference between these two communications. Communication has to be energetic. You have to be empathetic. You have to be enthusiastic, especially when you are in front of the customer, because you're getting a message alive in the eyes and ears of the, right? Now, how do you say a biryani is good? Smell. So I did a program for Stonefield in the Electronic City. And I said, the simple way to communicate your biryani is good, throw these flavors out on the road. The moment the consumers pass, they will come to you. Hatti Kapi, which is there in the coffee shop here in one of the malls, There were no customers there. I asked the guy, the owner, there are no customers. And he said, how does it matter to you? I said, that's also a good question. Doesn't matter to me. But I was wondering who recruited you. Because I went to the entrance and I found there were 300 footfalls every 1 hour. And if I want to direct them to a hatti kapi, once again, throw the coffee flavor out on the road. There are only 5 sensory organs connected to the brain. What you see, what you hear. So if I want to see whether a bread is fresh, I sense of touch. A textile, sense of touch. Biryani, smell. Coffee, smell. Potato chips. The moment you crunch one, the neighbor should hear and come running. Are you eating potato chips? Now, that's what communication is all about. That's non-verbal communication. Apple, the moment you crunch an apple, water should spurt out. But there are some vendors who inject water. That is not ethical. I'm talking about communication from that aspect of it. First, take a questionnaire, figure out the pain and the grain points, look at what the competition cannot do, what you can do, and I'll help you fill up that form for you in the last slide. And thank you, sir, very much for that question. I liked your question, how to sustain a brand. And we will keep on revitalizing the brand over a period of time. We'll do that. But this is the answer to the communication question. Anything else? Time is, okay. So I just wanted to explain this to you. Time is over, right? No, I will finish it. Yeah. The paid media on the digital platform is most expensive because it's an advertising on the media, but the message can be controlled. The owned media is the web portal where you talk about what you can give. It's moderate, but the message can be controlled as well, moderately. Earned media is the most important. Now, this is where others are speaking about you. And when the world is speaking about you and asking you questions, you plant what is called digital soldiers who will answer those questions for them. So you don't have to have a high sales force. Earned media is zero cost. The problem with earned media is the message cannot be controlled. So if you go to a restaurant and the food is not good, you take a picture and post it on the web saying that this restaurant serves bad food, no one will come there. That's a problem with the media which is digital. So you have to ensure that earlier on in the traditional media, pre-sales was important. In the digital media, post-sale is important. In other words, after the student gets an admission, how you process the student to be a world-class beater matters the most. Not pre-sales anymore. Post-sales is what is most important. What are others talking about you? So you have a social media post, which is called the listening post. What are others talking about you? And therefore, you use that and develop a content which is relevant to the audience and say, I can actually do this for you. And that's why lies a huge opportunity with the digital format. To end the program as so the new age communication is both ways. The marketeer to the consumer. But here, you are getting the consumer to chase you. So how do you get the consumer or the student to chase you rather than you chasing the customer? That is through the earned media that we are talking about. Of course, when we talk about the starting point, we use paid media. Then we go down and use both a mix of paid and owned media. And then once the student is processed and released into the world, he talks about you and brings in whole and loads of students into the college campus. And that's earned media. They talk good about you. That's how the format is. So I'm ending the class with this. These are the questions that we ask in terms of building and sustaining a brand. First and foremost, who is the target? You cannot be everything to everybody. So who can you serve the best? Now that is based on strength, in terms of the faculty strength that you have, relative to other schools whom you're competing with. You choose a target. Find out the target's pain points and gain points. So the target is one which you can easily serve and alleviate the pain and make a gain. The second one is, who are you going to be compared with? In the same target, there are other competitors. You will be compared with them. So the points of comparison will be mentioned. Then, how is your solution different from them? The third question. So this is what is in marketing terms called point of parity, and this is what is called point of difference. How are you unique about it? I didn't talk to you about the story of the tea. So when this girl asked me about tea, I said, look, you can't make a good tea. So she said, why? I said, because I'm a funny person. She said, why don't you come inside? So I came inside, said, when do you say a tea is good? And I said, this is the most brilliant question I've ever heard. I said, the first criteria for a tea to be good, according to me, to alleviate my pain, is the color of the tea. Have you seen the raindrops come on a hot summer afternoon on a gravel? That dark, rich color. That is the color I'm looking for. The second is the packaging. It should be in a glass so that I can see the tea and the tea can see me, and we both can actually then get lost in this world. Packaging is very critical. And the third criteria is I should see steam coming out from the glass. The third, three criteria to alleviate my pain. So who is the target? Who will I be compared with? What is my solution, therefore, which no one can match? What is the proof that you can deliver to say that you can deliver the solution? These are the four critical questions. Then we choose the media, the mix of paid media, owned media, and earned media, and then answer the critical questions that people ask. This is actually the way we build a brand image in front of the customer. So the old method of communicating from the company to the customer doesn't pay dividends because it's all exaggerated. If you go to Hebal flyover, there is an advertisement which says, this mattress will remove your pain of the back. Now, this is a highly exaggerated communication. It doesn't work. Communication which works has to be experienced by the customer, who then actually delivers the judgment that you're too good. You communicate less and you deliver more. On the Hennur, there is a beautiful petrol pump. It says pit stop efficiency. I went there and there was no one. The dispenser was looking at me and I was looking at the dispenser. But look at the advertisement. It's just like saying hot chips and giving it in a cold condition. It doesn't work that way. Communicate less, deliver more to develop a brand. And this solution has to keep on changing and changing and changing as all the other number twos will try to copy you and become a number one to answer your question, and which I use the example of Usain Bolt and the 100 meters race, that at each time he started examining how to reduce the speed through deliberate practice. So you bring in actually clinical teachers into the classroom. So when a student approaches your portal and sees a teacher teaching a particular topic in an easiest manner, that student falls in love with that teaching style and applies for an admission. That is how digitization has actually transformed the... So I won't be taking any further slides. The only thing I wanted to show was this. I don't know if the gentleman is there for this video, which I wanted to show. These are the last two videos. How people actually get more and more... They talk good about you or bad about you globally, and therefore you have to be very careful. This one, the first one, first. No, the previous one. The first one is about a grinder which was launched. And look at the millions of views you got about the grinder, saying, I want to buy a grinder like this. The second one was about a famous guitarist who was going to perform and booked his ticket in an airline. And he and his troupe, when he reached the destination, the guitar was broken. And he went and asked each and every staff, and they were rude to him. So he made a song and put it on the YouTube. And that made the airline lose market shares. I wanted to say that post-sale is so very important in marketing, because people who have bad experiences with you narrate this experience openly in the internet, and therefore no one comes to your school anymore. But good experiences transforms your school suddenly and brings in a lot of good people into the room. I'm sorry that doesn't work. In between, if you have any questions, I will answer and stop. Any other questions? I'm getting old, actually. I forgot to answer the question. She made a sample of the tea. And she said, how is it? And I said, it's out of this world. And she made a good glass of tea. And after I was having the tea, in the meantime, she got my name. And when I finished the tea, she came and asked, Mr. Kuruvilla, I said, yes. Can I actually make another glass of tea for you? I said, why not? Why? Because if you're too contented with the offering, you will never ask that million-dollar question, what is the price? And that's what we talk about, perceived benefit. Benefits are what you buy. Customers don't buy products, they buy benefits. Benefit is defined as WIFM. What will it do for me? Will it remove my pain? Will it make me gain? That's what it all. That's the simplified version of all that I talked about in terms. Yes, she did a wonderful job in terms of helping me with the glass of tea. My tea is that tea which is in a glass, a transparent glass, a small, but rich in color, very hot, but no one understands me at all. Yeah. But there are certain tea shops which I travel, just like the Sophia School example I gave you, I travel long distances to have that one glass of tea, because that tea really brings energy in me. Does any management school give me this kind of tea? No, the answer is no. And I've complained to every classroom, to all the students as well. Only some students have come forward and they have made a tea in a flask and given it to me while I'm taking the class. So that much of kindness they have experienced. Anyway, it was wonderful to... Increase the volume and the... Please.
I love my new IQAC. It does a ton of cool things, but with will it blend? That is the question. I love my new iPad. It does a ton of cool things. But will it blend? That is the question. Doesn't quite fit in the jar, but I can take care of that.
No!
I knew I could get the iPad in a BlendTech Total Blender. I think I'll press the iBlend button.
Can change, go to the next one. Yeah, next one. So that was a good one which attracted a number of attention about a new product. Now this is Dave Carroll's video where his guitar was broken. And he made a song and he posted on the YouTube, and United Airlines lost market shares. I can recommend a couple of books if you want to read how to make a message more contagious in the world, and get more people to watch your teaching style and get an admission in your school so that your brand stands out unique. I can recommend that. I was doing a program for HP in Bangalore. So I had to visit all these retail outlets, especially Apple. And this is the problem I face, and they taught me how to do it in seconds. And I said, if that is your strength, then why don't you actually put it in the portal and get people to come and visit your portal? Apple is the most expensive.
Airlines on my way to Nebraska. The plane departed Halifax, connecting in Chicago's O'Hare. While on the ground, a passenger said from the seat behind me, my God, they're throwing guitars out there. The band and I exchanged a look, best described as terror, at the action on the tarmac, and knowing whose projectiles these would be. And so before I left Chicago, I alerted 3 employees who showed complete indifference towards me. United, united, you broke my Taylor guitar. United, united, some big help you are. You broke it, you should fix it. You're liable, just admit it. I should have flown with someone else or gone by car. 'Cause United breaks guitars.
That's the impact of digitization, both positive and negative. People air their views openly on the internet. And then the more positive views that you have, and you show how you are teaching in a class, and what all you do for a student attracts attention. So digitization cuts supposed to be both ways. So that's the end of the talk that I had with you all. Thank you very much for your attention. This is by a professor by a Wharton School professor. The professor's name is Dr. Warren. The name of the book is Contagious. And there are 5 principles of how you make a message contagious for the people to actually look at your portal and see how good you are and how different you are and how unique you are. But once inside the campus, you have to have processed them to get that result so that they in turn become your disciples and tell the whole world that you are different. That is today's world, where honesty, hard work, humility pays. It's not like the old world anymore. Do you really do what you mean is what the world wants to know. So it's a borderless world. It's a world with no geographies, but you can do excellently well because the world is a market for you. Yeah. That's a book that I would recommend that you should read, Contagious. There are articles on this about how to make a message contagious, which we give the students to read and come. And then we give what kind of social media strategy works in what situations. So that's now the reading habits have come down of children. So we use various other methods to engage them, and they get engaged only if the content is relevant to them, if it impacts their pain or it makes them gain. That's why these schools which started off with a big promising note, I don't want to name the brand, which is closed. You know how many of them have closed. They've made videos only to make students score marks, charged a large lump sum. Some of them had large page advertisements on that they're better than IIMs. They don't exist any longer. So it is a challenging time, but let me also tell you, it's filled with opportunities in these challenging times. You need to have an incubation cell which will actually make people more creative. Look at the old age homes, how people are struggling. Look at a woman who is actually bedridden. Can I do anything for her? Of course I can do a lot for her. And that's actually what this foundation develops. Knowledge, skill, and discipline are the foundation parameters of how you are different from others. And you need to work towards being different. If you are same, it's called a commodity. No one needs a commodity any longer. You have to be different. So be proud of your own style. Don't copy others. Thank you very much.